Lana Rivera built her life on lies, but even she never expected one forged signature to expose her $7 million scam. Lana Rivera spent her 20s chasing a lifestyle she could never afford. Her social media pages showed a woman who seemed to have everything: sunlit yacht days, luxury hotel stays, and designer clothes in every post. But behind the glamorous images were overdue bills, maxed-out credit cards, and a growing fear that her carefully crafted illusion would eventually collapse. She was tired of scraping by, tired of pretending, and tired of watching real wealth slip past her every day. What she wanted was permanent luxury, not the borrowed kind she displayed online. Living in Miami only intensified her hunger. Everywhere she looked, she saw people with real money: foreign investors, tech millionaires, trust fund heirs. She studied how they moved, what they owned, and how effortlessly they lived. Each encounter pushed her further toward one idea: if she wanted to survive in a world built on money, she needed to stop pretending and start taking control. Lana convinced herself that she wasn't just chasing wealth. She was claiming what she believed she deserved. Her turning point came when she attended a private event filled with international elites. She wasn't invited. She slipped in using a borrowed pass, but what she saw changed everything. Golden watches that cost more than her apartment, conversations about business deals that sounded like fantasy, and people who treated millions like pocket change. She realized there were fortunes waiting to be taken by someone bold enough to reach for them. Lana left that night determined to stop living in imitation of luxury and start pursuing the real thing, no matter the cost. Lana understood that to win the trust of the ultra-rich, she needed more than beauty and confidence. She needed a believable identity that carried weight, legacy, and power. So she built one. She studied famous real estate families, copied their language, and memorized industry terms. Then she created her own fabricated empire, Rivera Estates International. The brand existed only on paper and online, but she made it look real enough to fool almost anyone. Sleek websites, staged photo shoots inside rented properties, and fake press releases made her appear like a young business heiress shaping Miami's skyline. To strengthen the illusion, she opened social media accounts showcasing luxury projects she had never touched. She posted images of architectural plans downloaded from obscure websites and passed them off as her own developments. She even created digital articles praising her leadership in emerging coastal investments. The internet became her stage, and every post pushed her further into the world she hoped to infiltrate. Her transformation was so convincing that people around her started believing the myth. Invitations to exclusive networking circles began appearing. That was when she learned about Sheikh Kareem Al Mansour, a wealthy Dubai mogul looking for opportunities in the U.S. market. Lana researched him obsessively, studying his business ventures, partnerships, and preferences. She tailored her persona to seem like the perfect entry point into Miami's real estate scene. When she finally crossed paths with the Sheikh's advisors, her confidence and polished identity raised no suspicion. Everything from her mannerisms to her fabricated success stories convinced them she was a rising figure in high-end development. Lana felt her plan taking shape. Every lie brought her closer to the breakthrough she had been preparing for, and she believed nothing could interrupt her climb. Lana had spent months preparing for the moment when she would introduce the deal that would change her life. By the time she presented it, every detail had already been engineered with precision. She unveiled what she called an exclusive off-market luxury development on prime coastal land in Miami, claiming it was available only to a select group of global investors. She knew that scarcity and secrecy would make it irresistible to someone like Sheikh Kareem, who preferred private ventures over public attention. She assembled a folder of forged land deeds, professionally edited aerial photographs, and fabricated partnership agreements with well-known hotel brands. Nothing looked amateur. Everything appeared legitimate enough to withstand surface-level scrutiny. To build further credibility, Lana created fake email chains between imaginary lawyers and non-existent city officials. These messages discussed permits, zoning benefits, and projected profits. She even included mock financial forecasts showing guaranteed returns within 2 years. The presentation felt so polished that even experienced investors might have hesitated to question it. Sheikh Kareem, convinced he was being offered a rare opportunity, approved the transfer of $7 million to what he believed was the project's holding account. But the account belonged solely to Lana, hidden behind a maze of shell corporations she had established in advance. Once the money arrived, she acted immediately. She converted large amounts into cryptocurrency, purchased gold bars under different aliases, and moved the rest through offshore accounts designed to erase her trail. Within a week, she disappeared from Dubai without creating a hint of suspicion. Back in Miami, she upgraded her life overnight. A penthouse with ocean views, luxury cars parked downstairs, and handcrafted jewelry filled her drawers. Lana convinced herself she had executed the perfect scheme. But the smallest oversight, one she never noticed, was already. The trouble began quietly, long before Lana realized anything was wrong. When the Sheikh's legal team attempted to initiate construction on the land she claimed to control, they ran into a simple issue. The plot number she provided didn't exist in any official Florida registry. At first, they assumed it was a clerical oversight. But deeper checks revealed that no such development had ever been approved, no permits were pending, and no ownership records matched the documents Lana created. What seemed like a minor confusion quickly evolved into a serious concern, prompting the team to examine her files more closely. As they reviewed her submitted paperwork, they noticed something else. Every document was crafted with expert precision, yet one small flaw stood out. A digital signature on a key permit traced back to a well-known Miami architect who had died 4 years earlier. The discovery shifted the situation from confusion to alarm. Once authorities were alerted, a formal investigation began. Financial analysts, cyber specialists, and fraud investigators worked together to untangle the web she had carefully woven. Her shell companies, though layered and complex, contained subtle patterns. Repeated IP addresses, reused template files, and timestamps linking her activities created a trail she never intended to leave. Detectives tracked her movements in Dubai through hotel logs, discreet camera footage, and gold purchase records. Lana had believed she moved invisibly through every step, but small security recordings captured details she assumed were untraceable. The case eventually drew the attention of Interpol, and agencies across multiple countries quietly collaborated to monitor her without alerting her. Lana continued her new lifestyle in Miami, never imagining that her downfall had already begun. While she enjoyed the wealth she had stolen, investigators steadily closed in, piece by piece, revealing how the perfect crime she planned was far weaker than she ever. Lana woke up the morning of her planned Caribbean getaway, feeling untouchable. She packed expensive luggage with designer clothes, expensive jewelry, and cash she kept hidden in her penthouse. She believed she had built a life too polished to question and too intricate to trace. What she didn't know was that investigators had been monitoring her financial movements for weeks. Unusual property payments, offshore transfers, and cryptocurrency withdrawals connected to her shell companies had formed a clear pattern. Every luxury purchase she made in Miami helped authorities confirm that she was living on stolen money. While she prepared to leave for the airport, federal agents gathered outside her building. They had already secured warrants, traced her digital footprints, and coordinated with international agencies to ensure she could not escape. When the elevator doors opened to the lobby and she rolled her suitcase forward, she was met by a silent team of officers who had been waiting for the perfect moment. She was taken into custody before she could even process what was happening. Inside the penthouse, officers uncovered the full scope of her operation. Hidden compartments held gold bars and multiple encrypted devices. Stacks of falsified documents were found organized in folders, each labeled with names of fake partnerships and non-existent projects. Her high-end furniture, luxury car titles, and jewelry were cataloged and seized as evidence. Despite her attempts to distance herself from the stolen funds, the digital trail proved overwhelming. Lana had believed confidence was enough to protect her, but the investigation showed that even the most sophisticated lies leave behind traces. The majority of the $7 million was unrecoverable, spread across foreign accounts that vanished beyond legal reach. Her arrest became a major headline, exposing her as a symbol of modern financial deception. What she thought was a flawless escape ended as a sharp reminder that greed. Lana's trial drew massive attention, turning her from a hidden scammer into a worldwide sensation. Reporters filled the courthouse each day, eager to capture every detail of the case. Prosecutors presented a timeline that exposed the full scale of her deception, from the creation of her fake real estate empire to the minute she attempted to flee Miami. Screens inside the courtroom displayed maps of her offshore transfers, metadata from her forged documents, and surveillance clips that showed her confidently withdrawing gold bars she believed were untraceable. The evidence painted her not as a clever mastermind, but as someone who relied on calculated luck and overlooked the smallest details that eventually destroyed her plan. While the world watched, Lana remained calm, maintaining a cold confidence she had perfected over years of pretending to be untouchable. But behind her silence was the realization that her life of luxury had ended permanently. The Sheikh's legal team pushed for the harshest penalties, determined to make her a warning for anyone who targeted international investors. Financial experts explained how her fraud affected markets, triggered cross-border investigations, and wasted months of resources across multiple agencies. Her actions, they reminded the court, were not just deceitful, they were deeply disruptive. When the verdict finally arrived, the courtroom fell silent. Lana received a lengthy federal sentence, along with orders to repay the remaining funds, even though everyone knew the money was long gone. She was taken away as cameras flashed, documenting the final moment of her rise and fall. In prison, her former luxury world vanished, replaced by strict routines and endless hours to think about the empire she built on lies. Lana had once believed she could outsmart everyone. Instead, she became a symbol of modern greed, a reminder that no illusion, no matter how carefully crafted, can survive real scrutiny. Life behind bars forced Lana to confront a reality she had avoided for years. The walls were plain, the routines unchanging, and the silence unforgiving. There were no designer clothes, no luxurious views, and no curated images to mask the truth. Her identity, once constructed with precision and dressed in wealth, collapsed into a number on a uniform. She no longer had the power to control how people saw her. The world now viewed her as a warning, not an icon. Days stretched slowly as she replayed each decision, recognizing how her hunger for status had shaped every step toward her downfall. Inside the prison, Lana kept to herself. Other inmates talked about her case, fascinated by the scale of her fraud and the international chase that followed. She avoided conversations, choosing instead to spend hours in the library reading old magazines about business empires and luxury lifestyles she once chased. Every page felt like a distant reminder of the world she had tried so hard to break into. Her confidence, once unshakable, faded into a quiet acceptance that she had destroyed her own life. Even the wealth she stole no longer felt real. It existed only in memories and unreachable accounts she no longer had access to. Occasionally, she received letters from strangers, some criticizing her greed, others treating her like a mysterious celebrity. But none changed the reality of her routine. Lana realized that the freedom she had risked everything for was the very thing she had lost most permanently. Her story continued to circulate online, used in documentaries and financial crime seminars as an example of digital deception. She had dreamed of fame, but not like this. In the end, she became known not for the luxury she pretended to own, but for the empire of lies that ultimately consumed her. The world outside moved on without her, but Lana's story refused to disappear. Months into her sentence, documentaries, podcasts, and investigative channels continued dissecting her scheme, each offering a different angle on how she managed to fool one of the world's most protected magnates. Inside the prison walls, she heard fragments of these discussions through television segments and overheard conversations. Each mention of her name reminded her that she had become a case study, a lesson taught to bankers, security experts, and law students analyzing the risks of digital fraud. She had once dreamed of global attention, but not the kind that followed her now. Meanwhile, the Sheikh's team launched efforts to strengthen international security measures. Banks began updating verification systems, governments revised protocols for cross-border investments, and digital identification platforms tightened their tracking tools. Lana's crime triggered reforms in places she had never visited, proving her impact reached far beyond Miami and Dubai. She watched from a distance as her own downfall pushed the world to evolve. It was a strange legacy, one she never intended to create but couldn't escape. As the years passed, Lana began writing down her experiences. At first, it was a way to pass time, but her notes grew into pages documenting her motivations, methods, and mistakes. She knew people would eventually want to hear her perspective, and she wondered whether telling her version could give her life some direction after release. She wasn't searching for sympathy. She wanted to understand herself. She examined how ambition had turned into obsession and how desperation slipped into crime without her realizing the point of no return. Despite her reflections, she couldn't change the past. Her empire of illusions had collapsed, and the wealth she once held evaporated into lost accounts and seized evidence. What remained was a single truth she could no longer ignore.